and I see that there are people sitting behind me. This is great. We are here to celebrate our 10-year birthday, which is awesome, yeah? Pretty cool. We don't take that for granted. We know that it's hard to birth a church, and it's all the work of God, but a lot of times it doesn't take, and to make it 10 years is really a milestone. And so we're going to stop and we're going to celebrate today. And behind me are some people who were there at the very beginning. That's pretty cool. And if you were there at the very beginning, if you were with us 10 years ago as we started New Day, we would like to honor you. If you just stand up, we want to honor you for your perseverance, your commitment to the local body. Wow, come on. Thanks for hanging out with us that long. All 7 of you. That's awesome. Well, really, so we have a group of people here, Craig and Shauna, who were with us at the very beginning, Kirk and Tim. And Tim and Pam were really, they have become like the older people in the church. They've been here, they have been here longer than anybody, really. They go back into the 90s, before even I came to Franktown, which was the church that we planted out of. And so, Tim, you and Pam were there as this whole dream for a church in Parker kind of began. Tell us what that was like.
I think it's the dream of every church to grow and to expand and to plant another church. And Pam and I joined in 1990 with a group of about 50 people in the Franktown church. That grew over some years to where maybe a decade later we were about 125 or so. Outgrew the small building that was also serving as a church school, and decided to convert that into a school and build a building in Franktown. And you were involved in that project. That was about the time Dave came to serve as our pastor. And man, I tell you, about the time we got that building built, I think we had outgrown it. And so then the idea was, well, let's look at planting another church. And where else better than Parker? That seemed to be where a lot of our folks were coming from. And Dave shared then a little bit with the church board about this idea of a multi-site model.
Yeah. So as we looked at starting a new church in Parker, we did so very intentionally and with a lot of planning. And the conference actually helped us with that. And we ended up taking a team of 4 people to Chicago to learn about this new way of doing church called multi-site. I don't know what that conversation was about, but it looks pretty intense as Tom and Sean are looking at each other, and Craig's just kind of lost in the middle. I don't know. But we were in Chicago, and when we left Chicago, we had a plan, a 9 to 12-month plan of how we were going to start a church in Parker. And Craig, you were part of that. What do you remember about that time?
Yeah, I do remember that. That was quite a trip to Chicago. We learned lots of interesting and fun ways to see a church grow and expand. We learned lots of things. A couple things we learned. Well, one thing that we were reminded of, we already knew, is that we are all called to be fishers of men. And as fishers of men, a good fisherman always is an expert at 2 things. That is, knowing where the fish are and knowing what the fish like and what gets their attention and what they need. So with that in mind, we came back and we started doing some research about where would be the best place to put this new gathering that we're going to be having. So we've got a bunch of future growth maps out in northern Douglas County and eastern Highlands Ranch and all that, and we figured Parker was the place to be. And so we got that. We divided up all the neighborhoods. We all drove around. We talked to every school, I think, that in the whole area. We talked to, we talked to schools, and we talked to churches, and we talked to movie theaters, and we talked to hotels. And we finally decided that Pine Grove was the place. Pine Grove Elementary and Lone Tree was the place. Not Lone Tree. Parker. Yeah, Stonegate. That's what I was trying to come up with there. So anyway, we got all that. Also part of our plan is to finding out what our fish we're going to be interested in. So we came up with some community surveys. And we all went door to door. And it was about 5 or 6 questions about if there was a new church coming to your neighborhood, what could that church do that would be beneficial to you and your family? And we got some very interesting answers, and we put that information to use. So the first 3 or 4 years that we were doing all that. Mm-hmm. So that was a lot of fun stuff there. And then another fun thing that I got to really enjoy was we had this new plan, and we had no stuff to do church with every week. So I got to go on eBay, and I found all the amps and all the mics and all the lights and all the staging stuff and all that. I was like a kid in a candy store. It was
That's awesome. You raised great points about how we started very intentionally outward focused, very strategically. We had a launch team that would meet together and we would talk about all the things we needed to do. And one of the things we needed to do was recruit new volunteers for all the ministries that would need to be funded. And we put together a ministry matrix of what were the key ministries that really needed to be funded or volunteered and filled with volunteers and how to get those. And we put together some videos that would then recruit volunteers for these key ministries. One of the key ministries that we still have today is the God Squad. And I just want to show you a little clip of a video we put together to recruit for God Squad. This is just a little outtake of it, so you won't get the full sense of it, but this is Mission Possible.
When Kirk had hair.
God Squad needs you.
So yeah, unfortunately people responded. So if you're serving on God Squad today, you stand in the line of that. So that's awesome. Well, finally, 10 years ago this weekend, we had our first service in Parker, and it was really exciting. And one of the things, you had people down in Franktown who were part of this and launching this, but they were there and they wanted to know what had happened. And so we actually ended up making a short video of a report to Franktown of what was happening in Parker. And I'm going to show you a little clip of that. Now, just remember, I was 10 years younger, and hairstyles were a little different. This was in the basement of Tim's house when we were actually neighbors at the time. And so I'm like, hey, let's throw this thing together. And we're in the basement, and it has lasted the last 10 years. Here we go.
Good morning, Franktown family, and happy Sabbath. This is Pastor Dave, and just wanted to bring you a brief report on what's happening up the road in Parker with our new site. It all began last week on Friday night as about a dozen of us gathered together for prayer in Pine Grove Elementary School. And we went from room to room and in the gymnasium, and we prayed for God's blessing to be poured out on this new site, seeking to reach the people of Parker with the good news of Jesus Christ. And the next morning, God began to pour out his blessings. It all started at about 8 o'clock as the God Squad showed up and began the hard but fun work of unloading the trailer and getting the gym set up, chairs set up, the sound systems and the screens and everything that would be needed. And they worked hard, and by 10 o'clock they were ready to go. And at 10 o'clock, well, even before that, at 9 o'clock, our greeters and hosts and hostess showed up early, and they were there ready to greet those who would be coming, and we're thankful for their service. At 10 o'clock, our children's ministers and our adult Sabbath school teachers were all in place and ready to go, and our children were blessed by some fantastic children's ministries classes, as well as our adults, with some stimulating Bible study and interaction. At 11:15, we gathered together for our first corporate worship service in the Parker area at the new Parker site. And what a blessing it was. God showed up and blessed our hearts. And the word was proclaimed, and he was worshiped and lifted up and glorified. And it was a wonderful experience. Afterwards, we gathered for our first fellowship meal, and we were just blessed by love for one another, fellowship, great food, and everything went off without a hitch. In all, 96 people were there for our first Sabbath at the new site in Parker. We believe that not only has God blessed, but his blessings are still to be poured out, and his greatest work is still to be done. We believe he wants to touch and reach the people of Parker and Franktown, bring them into his family and into his kingdom through these two New Day sites.
And indeed, that's what's happened. It's awesome. God has been good to us. Now, Kirk, you were part of that initial launch, and I remember it seems like you served in almost every ministry. What do you remember about that time of getting that church off the ground and all that work?
The main thing was this trailer out here. A couple of us lovingly called the trailer the Beast. because we had to go into the belly of it in order to, there was one way to pack that trailer so that everything fit. In one way specifically, and we're talking, I mean, there's first and foremost, the sections of stage, man, those things were, was it 6x4 or something like that? 6x9. And they weighed at least 150, 200 pounds each. And then we had, what, 9 seconds? I mean, am I exaggerating?
I don't think you are. No, they're pretty
serious, man. That was no joke. And we had 9 sections of that, all the lights, all the speakers and all that. And we had to show up at 8 o'clock in order to still be ready for church by 11:15. And we had to have a crew of about no less than 5, 6, sometimes as many as 8 or 10 guys to do that. And it was serious. The screen was 10 by 10. We had to put the frame together. We had to button it down. And then in order to get the picture on the screen, there wasn't enough room in front of the screen or behind it. So we had to get a mirror. And we put the mirror up behind the screen, which meant we had to have the projector kind of bounce off of the mirror and back onto the screen at a certain angle in order for it to be big enough. So we had a ladder behind the screen with the mirror and clamps and 2x4s and bungee cords. And I mean, you know, some of you guys are laughing because you remember that. I mean, it was just, I mean, it took a lot to just to have church every week. And so,
but apparently, as you guys were working, Mike and Mitch just sat
yeah, those guys just kind of hung out. It's funny how that worked. And a lot of times, I bet you both of them are still doing that this morning. But but the cool part was, it was I like to say, it was just beautiful. It was because it was literally all hands on deck, and for just to see everyone show up and everyone just kind of putting on work gloves or whatever it took just to have church. I mean, just to turn. The first time we did it, we blew a fuse, I think. But just, yeah, too many lights. But just to have church, it was beautiful to see everyone kind of come together and do that. And I think that's kind of the spirit, the foundation of what the culture of our church has been ever since.
Yeah, you were saying, we were talking earlier this week that kind of all hands on deck mentality has flowed down 10 years later to still having just such a great volunteer and servant spirit.
It still exists today, and it's beautiful to show up and still see everybody doing everything it takes just to have church.
Tim, now you made a very strategic sacrifice. You and Pam stayed in Franktown and just kind of helped launch. But what were the feelings kind of in Franktown at the time?
Well, it was a little sacrifice, but it was also good to stay back as well. You know, we had a nice,
you didn't have to
nice
deal with
new
the stage.
building, didn't have to deal with all that. And it was a bittersweet moment because we were excited for what was going on in Parker, but we also then had a little bit more availability, I think, and impetus to grow in Franktown as well, and throughout Castle Rock and things of that nature. So I think it worked out quite nicely. We shared pastors still. We shared a lot of resources and budgets and things like that. So we still felt like we were part of the movement. And
that's a great point, that we were multi-site, which means we were still one church, but just meeting at 2 locations. So we had one board, one budget, one worship service. Both sites got the same sermon from 2 different speakers, and so we were still one church, but just meeting at 2 locations. Great point. What do you remember, Sean, about that time?
I remember that it was a realization of a dream, that now we finally had this Seventh-day Adventist church in Parker. And we had sent out all these postcards to every home in Parker announcing our opening, and we had made this top 10 list of why it is awesome to be at church on Saturday. And one of those things, of course, is that you're never going to be late for an 11 o'clock Sunday Broncos game. Yeah. And, you know, more than that, though, there was just this energy. All of us were there. It was warm. It was friendly. It was energetic. And you know what? We sat on folding chairs for church. We sat at school lunch tables for potluck. But we were all thrilled to be there.
That's good. Well, the last 10 years have really been a great journey. And over the last 10 years, we've moved. We have adapted. We have overcome some obstacles. We have just become what we are today and still in process. But let's talk about the journey and the things that kind of stand out to you about what has made New Day unique within the Parker community. Craig, as you think about our journey in the last 10 years, kind of what stands out to you about that makes us kind of unique?
Well, it was, first of all, probably the most unique thing, I thought, at least at the start, was this one church, 2 sites business, and trying to explain that to Adventists from other churches and saying, yeah, we're in Parker, but yeah, we're part of Franktown. And every time I talk to people like that, I always got a puzzled look when I left. But hey, said it's all good, it's working, and we're growing. So it's a good thing.
So for 5 years, we were multi-site.
Exactly.
And then some things happened that kind of made us see that it was probably best to make two churches rather than one church.
Right. We had some things going on at both sites, and then we also unfortunately lost Pastor Jonathan before he was called to go back to North Carolina, which he did. So that put us back to one church, two sites, one pastor. And it got a little tricky because both sites needed the pastor there. So actually we tried for a while, some of you probably remember, having church here at 4 in the afternoon on Sabbath afternoon. Popular with
Bring
some.
back 4! Bring back 4! Yeah.
Popular
There's
with
a
some.
movement underway, I think.
There were some mamas with babies that napped that weren't real happy with all that, or something like that anyway. So at that point down the road, and considering everything else that was going on, everyone just mutually agreed that it was probably time for us to be just us and Franktown to just be Franktown. So I don't remember all the details how that came about, but I do remember that the last Sabbath we were all together. We all met at Franktown, and we had a special altar that we built as a memorial of our history together, and that we would always be bonded in a special way, and we would share a common history. And that's kind of what's on the plaque down there.
That's good. Thank you. How about you, Tim? What do you remember about kind of the journey?
Boy, along the way, one of the things that I've really enjoyed about New Day and its culture is the mission trips that we've done, the local approach to things. And in particular, there's this trip that we did to Peru that 57 of us went to Peru. It was quite a...
2009.
Yeah, and it was a big group of folks, I mean, probably a third of the church at the time. We took a boat up the Amazon River to a place called Camp Smiles, which was just a beautiful setting. And we had our own little lagoon there. We had people that came out for baptisms. I think Dave baptized well over a dozen people one day, and it was just a neat experience. A lot of the trip was kind of a combination of medical work. We got some young nurses in the making there, and dentists. And anyway, it was a lot of fun. We also had a kind of a kids program with a vacation Bible school. Kind of one-day event sort of thing that we did in each of the communities. And then we also were working on providing clean water to some of the communities, so drilling wells there, and everybody chipped in, and it was quite a manual process. But anyway, and a lot of rain in the Amazon jungle. And so we were all quite wet, and usually...
Gilligan.
Yeah. We were very eager to usually get back to the comforts of the cabins. A lot of fun on these trips, too. A lot of kind of excursions that we do to take advantage of the local fair, and including even going to Machu Picchu. Yeah, where else can you see a three-toed sloth? So... Anyway, but just the mission trips that New Day does is a great way to bring together the community. And there's a trip going this summer again back to Peru, so I'm sure you can probably get plugged in if you.
I think we need to recruit some people for Peru this year. Yeah, I agree. Mission trips have been such an important part of our journey to really form us, give us that outward focus as we travel to Rwanda or Peru or wherever it may be. Shauna, what do you remember?
Well, I would love to talk about what we do right here in
Okay.
Parker. In our dreams for New Day Parker, we didn't just want this church that was here to exist. We wanted to be a church that made a difference.
Sorry.
And over the last 10 years, we've been on a journey to make sure that if we left, our community would miss us. And today we have relationships with the Parker Adventist Hospital, with many of the schools in Parker, the Parker Police Department, and the Parker Task Force. And over these years, we've served firefighters, police officers, mothers facing a crisis pregnancy, families facing domestic abuse, hungry school children, and families who wouldn't have had Christmas without us. We've also provided opportunities for people in Parker to help the hurting around the world through packing gift-filled shoeboxes for children and through preparing HIV and AIDS caregiver kits for those who are taking care of those infected. We've held a marriage seminar, we raked leaves, we aerated lawns, we washed cars, we passed out donuts to those working hard during the holidays, and we even paid for part of people's gas. Remember when gas was almost $4 a gallon?
Oh, hello! Okay, who was in first grade?
Good morning. That's perfect. How are you doing today? church that our purpose, our mission is to love God and serve people. And so we're always looking for ways to serve people. And while we're certainly serving more critical needs in our community and around the world, we thought this would be a really fun way to serve people, particularly people on fixed income, those who are unemployed, who have had to change their lifestyles and maybe drive less or cut back in other places because of the price of gas. Thought this might even impact someone's week, being able to save 50 cents at the pump. So just a way for us to serve people.
How you doing there, young man? Is that a good donut? A half life? I'm just kidding.
So those were some great memories. A couple other memories we have. One warm summer afternoon, we were delivering food to hungry children in Parker, and you may not think that existed, but these are kids that normally would have had free lunch at school, so during the summer this was a lifeline for them. My daughter knocked on the door of this home that looked like a very nice home. It was hard to believe that there was a hungry child that lived there. And the woman answered the door and she smiled and she said, "Thank you." And then she commented, "Well, now I know what we're going to be eating for dinner." And it was just hard for us to imagine that there are people in Parker that don't know where their next meal is coming from, but we as a church have made a difference to families like those. And one other great memory we had when we thought of the things we've done in the community was of a woman who was in her car just thinking how our world is so sad and nobody does anything nice for anyone anymore. And minutes later, she drove up to our totally free car wash. And as she drove up, she just started to cry because she couldn't believe this gesture of kindness we were doing. We were able to pray with her, and she just said that she really felt like God cared. And we are so thankful for the opportunities that we've had to help others, but this is just the beginning. It's not going to end here. We plan to continue these relationships and build others to be a church that will be missed if we are gone.
That's good. Wow. Yeah, thanks, Shauna. I think the thing that stands out to all of us the most as we look back is just the mission fulfillment, the fact that we are becoming more passionate followers of Christ at New Day and in community through our small groups, through our mission trips, through our service in the community, through our spiritual disciplines and our growth plans of connecting with Jesus. We're all being transformed, and we've been getting testimonies from many of you over the last week or two or 3 weeks. And so, who has something that maybe Kirk? Did you have something that stood out to you? We've gotten a lot of things, but what stands out to you?
Yeah, I mean, this one's pretty powerful. It's from someone who chose to remain anonymous, but the story is pretty powerful. It says, New Day led me into a small group where I developed an accountability relationship. Through the help of that accountability relationship, I was freed from a lifelong struggle with pornography, guilt, and remorse. Approaching 3 years of complete freedom from even a remote temptation, I am forever grateful to the help that God has done to change me.
Another one?
Yeah. I'm going to go again. This one's a little bit different, but this one's from Tom. Tom Getboy's back there in the back. After such a long absence from church in general, I found New Day to be a long breath of spiritual fresh air. The deep commitment from the members I have met are a great inspiration to me. I've never looked forward to going to church as much as I have with New Day. The Spirit of Christ is everywhere at New Day.
That's awesome. That's good. How about you, Tim?
Lily Dart wrote this. She says, though I haven't been part of this special church family for 3 years, New Day continues to make me a more passionate Christ follower. The love and spiritual growth that ignited a fire in me at New Day for 7 years are still burning strong, and more logs have just been added through the relationships I still carry with me. I burn brighter because of what God has done in and through me at New Day. Through New Day, God refined me in the fire as a leader. It was a continual training ground for growth. If you are a part of New Day, really a committed member, you will grow. New Day provides all that is needed to become a passionate Christ follower. You just have to commit to allowing the Lord to do the work in you. I was all in at New Day, and God honored that by transforming my heart to be more like Jesus.
Oh, that's good. Thanks. Let me see if I can get through this one. This is Rebecca Frizzell. She writes, I've been here from the beginning. When we started our church, I was the eager member, on fire, ready to serve others and share Jesus with my fellow church members and whoever walked into our doors. I'd come early and leave late, unloading the trailer and decorating our portable stage in the school gym. I had no idea how much over the next 10 years I'd be celebrating some of my biggest joys and my most unimaginable heartbreak ever, causing me to be the one who needed the church's support, prayers, and love, sometimes just to make it to the next day. When it felt like my life was ripped apart and I had doubts about whether I even wanted to live, my church family was there for me, praying, encouraging, forgiving, and just loving. This church has shown me that I am a part of the body. When I was broken and bleeding, injured, seemingly beyond repair, I wasn't amputated and discarded, which probably would have been easier and more comfortable for the rest of the body to deal with. My pain was treated, sometimes by people I barely knew, with tenderness and love. You administered your medicine of forgiveness and prayer and brought healing to my heart with encouragement, patience, and love. Now I know what it's like to receive friendship and love when you feel so alone. And now, because of you, my church, I'm able to be the one who can start giving again and help others walk through this messy, sometimes painful life. Please know, church, you make a difference.
I have one from Kathy Grimler. She says, before coming to New Day, I was at a loss as to how to be an active follower of Christ. New Day showed me how each of us, including me a sinner, can make a difference in the lives of people by offering my time, talents, and treasure as he directs me. Whether it's through corporate outreach like the Christmas store, or sponsoring needy children through World Vision, or volunteering at a crisis pregnancy center or hospice, New Day has taught me the valuable lesson of happiness and hope through giving in our Savior's name. Although I currently live in New Mexico, New Day will always have my heart and be my home church.
I have one here from Miss Irene Longfellow. I've gone to many, many churches and listened to hundreds of sermons in my long lifetime. I've just turned 89. But now I have but none have given me the joy and peace that my New Day church has given me. I love New Day. Pastor Dave and Pastor Lisa are truly God's disciples, and I love all the church family. I feel at peace with myself as I come to the end of my life. Your messages here have given me that peace.
Yeah. Thank you for sending those in. That's just a sample. You have another one?
Do we have time for one more?
Okay, sure.
This one is from Pam McTavish. And Pam says, today I celebrate the influence New Day has had in my life. My family has experienced a joyful, thriving church that has encouraged each of us personally and made us more in love with Jesus. Through New Day's mission trips, our eyes have been opened to the world, its people, extreme poverty, suffering, and the joy that is found in Jesus. I see God's love for people and how he wants to use us to spread his love. Being a part of New Day family has been a foretaste of heaven, and I long for Jesus to return.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you for sending those in. We weren't able to get to everyone's testimonies, but they were all beautiful and meaningful for me and those of us who read them. One of the things I think makes New Day so unique is that we've always said when someone is baptized, it's not just going to be something that's moved past quickly, but we celebrate baptisms more than anything. When someone gives their life to Christ, we just come around them. We have cake and balloons and we pray over them and we make it such a big deal. And we've had lots of baptisms over the last 10 years, but we remembered one day in particular in 2011 where we think 18 people were baptized, and we'll always look at that. It's just such an amazing day. And just take a look at this video that I think says a lot about what New Day is all about.